I wanted to just ask you, because it's been since the start of this assault on Gaza, this genocide, this war, whatever you want to call it, that you've been on. And you have also been outspoken about what's happening. And you've been kind of a pillar. And I've been so happy to have another friend in comedy, and also a Jew who is speaking out about this. And that hasn't come without consequences. And specifically, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but we know
No, I'm comfortable with anything. I'm fine.
Okay. But that in this industry, like, people have gotten other folks fired, whether in all kinds of entertainment, because of their stances on Gaza. Share your experience, and or how has that affected you, if at all?
I do think that I'm fortunate in the sense that I'm not quite big enough to deal with like the intense consequences of it, which is why I think it's important to challenge myself to embrace the stances I feel passionate about publicly, because I think you got to do it. You got to hold yourself accountable on your way up. You can't just wait till you're at the top and then make some big stance. Right. Then you have a lot of excuses and a lot of ways to get out of it.
2012.
Yeah. So I was just like, I just Twitter or X is where I felt, where I just felt like the best. There's plenty of bad information on Twitter where people were posting a lot of things and showing a lot of these war crimes and these horrible things happening. So it just started with like, an occasional retweet or whatnot, and then eventually kind of just shared some of my own thoughts. And there was the only real consequences. There was a club here where the booker tried to get another comedian banned from a club for essentially their pro-Palestinian views, and then I publicly called out that booker. And again, it wasn't a big club that I was kicked out of, but I will never work that club again. And
sure.
And ultimately, I've been at clubs where some comedians will say to you, you're careful about this. I mean, there's a lot of Jewish people in comedy. There's a lot of Jewish people in Hollywood. It's just a reality. It's partly because that was one of the industries we were allowed to participate back in vaudevillian days.
Right.
I think it's more just that you can feel the pressure of Jewish people assuming that as a Jew, we're on the exact same page politically. Yeah. And it can be hard moment by moment, just being like, letting your views be known, knowing that you're going to piss off those people. I had a meeting, I'll keep this vague, but it was like a potential meeting for something big. And one of the people there was much older. He's Jewish, and he comes up to me after the meeting and says, essentially like, so how, I don't mean to put on a Jewish voice. That's my old man voice.
Just how I sound when I do old man.
This thing, how do you talk about everything going on with Israel? And the way that it was asked, it was one of those things where I'm like, you assume what my position is on this, which is a very Zionist. You are asking me in a very professional setting where I am very much on the lower. I don't have the power here,
right,
at all. And furthermore, if I were Palestinian, if I were Muslim, if I were not a member of the tribe, you wouldn't be interacting with me in this way, or you would have views, or you wouldn't want to bring me onto the thing. So you just feel, while it's not a direct, he didn't say to me, hey, we're going to give you the big movie deal if you pledge your allegiance to Israel. You can feel the tension of it being accepted as a matter of fact that to even criticize Israel would be akin to post 9/11 saying like Al-Qaeda is making some good points. Like that's
right.
That's the way that it's presented, or was presented. And then And then as anyone who studies anything could see that, the mood shifts as the numbers become so fucking unbearable. So that's what I've felt. And
so what did you say? Of course. Well,
Of course. Oh my
I
God.
I
I ripped
avoid
over
it.
my shirt. I had the Israeli star right there. He said, "Hey, you're signed, buddy." Um, no, in that moment, listen, there's some moments I'm proud of, and there's some moments I don't do that, but I go, it's crazy. It's
Yeah,
crazy
it's
out
crazy
there.
out there.
And then I walk away as fast as I can.
Bye.
I think they're all full of shit. What are you going to do? The world's crazy. Um, for me, I think I made the decision of like at least Twitter, which feels like the most direct line to my thoughts. That's where I'm going to be the most vocal.
Yeah.
But I think it's tricky with comedy. My opinion, at least of my what I want comedy to be, is I don't try to have a lot of comedy where I'm in the right,
Yeah.
or I'm like, oh my God, I made balloons pop up. I didn't even mean to.
Wow, gosh. You're magic.
Peace for everybody. I just don't. I think what's tricky about doing comedy is like I have some jokes, but the problem is if I'm sharing like frankly like something critical of Israel and the audience applauds, that's also not what I'm trying to do on stage. So it's trying to
Sure.
figure out like where am I a comedian and where am I a human being, and where can I use it feels so arrogant to be like my platform, but where can I combine the two.
Well,
And yeah,
yeah. No, I think I really appreciate because this is ostensibly a comedy show as well. We have comics on. We don't always do comedy, but we don't always talk about the industry and the ways that, especially right now, there are very prominent Jewish comics who are incredibly Zionist and who actually, I think, behind the scenes are probably having a role in some of the blacklisting that we see, although the tide is turning more so in my lifetime than in any time. I mean, for the most in my lifetime, I guess I've seen American public sentiment shifting, especially also young Jewish American public sentiment shifting.
for
But
sure.
it's very, it is really difficult to one, know how to navigate it professionally so that you like still get meetings, but then two, know how to navigate it on stage so that you can speak to the moment, but also keep it light and funny. And like, actually, one of my friend in comics, Sammy Obeid, who
I
is
saw him.
kind
I
of,
saw him yesterday, last
yeah, I
night.
mean, Sammy's great. But also Sammy is like, has always been kind of a like set up punch, kind of like pun heavy,
Yeah,
although smart pun heavy comic. And in some ways it's like the most brilliant and perfect way to talk about how heinous everything is just like pun, and he's, part Palestinian, like all this. But it is, you don't want to bum everyone out, but you're also like, you know what I mean? It's like also the elephant in the room. So um yeah, but I think that's really interesting, like, you saying on the way up, like, it's usually people once you get really mega famous is when you're like Leonardo DiCaprio and you're like, I'm just gonna post about sea turtles
sure. And
forever."
and I feel especially I feel like I really do feel justified in criticizing my fellow comedians, especially the more famous, the Amy Schumers of the world,
Yeah.
the Tiffany Haddishes of the world, the Jerry Seinfelds of the world, because they have a platform. They have a platform, and I actually before I started working with sort of a representative in the business
Mhm.
who might also represent Amy Schumer. I kind of
Oof.
asked someone in advance. I said, "Hey, just so you know, I've had two very harsh tweets about this person. Is that cool?" And they were like, we generally ask our clients to try to be respectful of one another, but ultimately you do you. And you have to, because at the end of the day, you got 3 to 5 agencies that represent all of show business. And I think so much of the general public, if they understood that, some agent represents their liberal hero and Tucker Carlson, they'd go, oh my God, just when you're in show business, you just realize the money's all flowing
Yeah.
partially to the same source, even if they're on diametric sides of the aisle.
So
Yeah.
the okay, first of all, look out, but also maybe like I'm curious. I'm very curious because you've had some not just like tweets about Amy Schumer, but viral, funny tweets about how much that woman is losing her mind. But on the agents thing, and then we'll move on. But my former agent represented Tommy Lahren. You know Tommy Lahren, right?
Remind me. It sounds familiar.
She is
yeah.
She kind of was like pre-Trump, but like as he ascended, yeah. You know, I hate Beyonce. White
Was
people
she
are
the
under
one that got in
attack.
trouble because she said she was pro-choice?
Choice at one point, yeah, and then like walk that all the way back, and he dropped her. Or I mean, dropped her. He let go of her, and also a massive golden goose at that point. And I looked at him and I was like, "You are on the right side of history." Like God will reward you. I didn't say God will reward you, but basically, like you will be the angels will herald you up. Because she is vile, and I was just like, do not represent someone like that. That's awful. And yeah, he no longer represents me.
Sure. I'm always curious if there will come a day, and again, this just depends on how wise the general population gets, is whether I feel like there have emerged certainly managers, which for those listeners, if an agency represents a lot of people, manager is more focused and more focused on kind of the longer trajectory. I imagine there's some managers out there already who have more quote unquote right-wing clients and have more ins at the Daily Wire than Bravo. And I wonder if that will ever spread to the agency level. It's hard to imagine because there's such a monopoly, really, to a degree between the three major agencies. But I always wonder if there will come a day where ideologies will force these agencies, and it's really up to the big money making clients if they want to make a big stink and say, why the fuck is Tucker Carlson being repped by my agent?
Well, and back to this issue at hand, like I actually draw no distinction between the likes of Tucker Carlson and someone who is defending Israel's actions right now.
Sure.
I mean, truly, it is a right-wing genocidal project, and the right salivates over Israel. And the idea that we could bring that here. We could have massive walls. We could do apartheid. Why don't we do apartheid? And they don't admit that. I mean, this is Michael Rappaport will never admit that to himself. Dick Stain, Donald Trump. But knowing that Donald Trump loves Bibi Netanyahu and Israel, and is like, why don't we do all the stuff they do to Palestinians, but to Black Americans here, and et cetera, and migrants and whatnot.
It was so many liberals, especially before October 7th, they would describe Netanyahu as a fascist, and they hated Netanyahu. And then all of a sudden they were like, we got to go with Israel's plan. And I'm like, so you think we should go with the plan of the guy you said was a fascist, who you went on stage and did comedy about it being such a fascist and fuck this guy, and suddenly we're supposed to support the entire unquestioning the entire plan of the person you said was a fascist. You said was a fascist. And it's embarrassing.
And now they're turning on Bibi. They're like, no, but we just don't want him as the brand, but we want his plan.
Yeah.
We just don't want his face. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do it.